Greetings and salutations, all you stunning individuals. It is another FPL League Unlock. Eric and Mark here to get back into the full swing of Worlds 2025 previews. We're at the creme de la creme, cream of the crop, doing part 2 of our top 20 player rankings, 10 to 1. These are the big dogs. This is where the main title contenders are hanging out, and we're accustomed to, you can imagine, probably a couple of teams making up the majority of the top 10.
This is where you're at the ice cream sundae bar. You've already selected the base layer. You've selected the ice cream. Some people think that might be the most important part of the sundae, but I'll tell you, it's always about the toppings. Who is at the very top? What layer of sauce are you putting on? Are you putting on a cherry, some marshmallows, maybe some peanuts? Who knows if we're getting crazy with the sprinkles on it? But that is where we are at the very top. The most important part of the sundae. Let's dive into these players.
It's where your $5 ice cream becomes $10 when you weigh it down with a pound of gummy worms to take it to that next level. That's where these guys are. And the first gummy worm to talk about is a guy we're used to probably being closer to the top of this list, and that is Zeus for Hanwha Life coming in, who we have seen both sides of the Zeus spectrum throughout just the playoff run for Hanwha Life. That's him completely taking over a side lane game or flashing over a wall and getting a little too hypey and maybe costing them a team fight.
I will say at the very least, though, I don't think it's as nearly as bad or as down of a moment as some of the Twisted Fate games we have seen in the past from your boy Zeus when he was back with T1. Different story this year, along with Hanwha Life in New Jersey for your boy Zeus, and still more or less delivering that performance, that type of power level you can expect in that top side, as you said. Still not to the full dominance form that I think you would have envisioned or dreamed of him being in at this point if you are Hanwha Life, but still strong enough of an option, more enough of a win condition that he still presents as that threat on the international stage.
And the question is going to be, is it a level up internationally that we see that best top laner in the world form out of Zeus? Because even you look at the 3 Worlds runs he had with T1, there were some where you were going, oh, this guy maybe choking a little bit, or you saw, oh, this is the best player, not just top laner, best player in the entire tournament. We've seen him reach that level still at times here this year on Hanwha Life.
Yeah, and I think that it's going to be one of those ones where if you look back at the past, there were less conditions that you felt had to be met in order for him to take over, to put his influence on the game. I think now you are viewing it as, okay, maybe there's 1 or 2 extra conditions, things that have to be going down that path, either individually or for the team with Hanwha Life, in order for then, okay, that key has twisted, it's unlocked the door, and the beast of Zeus is able to be unleashed. That's going to be the question when you're looking at this from Hanwha Life. And certainly still provides, maybe not statistically this year, but I think the best Rumble option out of the LCK, someone that certainly is going to be utilizing, Flame Spitter, getting that ultimate down in the right spots for these team fights, really pushing that pace. Otherwise, I think you're looking at a relatively similar champion pool at this point to everybody that we've got going on.
Next up, we got a fella and a squad who some people, maybe rightfully so, think are underrepresented, but anyone's legend is a team that is, their parts are greater than their individualness, and you've got to highlight at least one guy, though. And of course, the standout man in the jungle is Tarzan, with the crazy carry picks, even on stuff like Trundle. We've seen him take over. I think no question he is the X factor for AL.
This is a car meet, and you've got all these crazy exotic sports cars showing up, revving their engines, showcasing all these things. Here comes the Honda Civic, and it's rolling up, and you're wondering,
reliable.
How are these guys here? What's going on? And then you flip up the hood and you see they have taken in a new engine into this car. And that is Tarzan, is that engine, is that revving horsepower for this team, driving them forward. And I think that's where he finds himself on a list like this. The skill set that we've seen from him individually this year, the champion pool that he has been able to call upon and utilize for the squad and change the dynamics of a game. That's what he's bringing to the table. And I'm happy to have him represented up here in the list.
And the old meme of Tarzan, he's the MVP of every match he's in. He's either carrying the game or is getting caught out and losing it and is the MVP for the other team. That meme has died a little bit here in 2025 because he has been much more consistently just the reason why AL are winning games, or one of the main reasons.
Yeah, and I think that you'd be looking as far as a champion pool. You're seeing the Trundle, the Pantheon, Poppy. These type of picks are where he is finding a lot of success for this Anyone's Legend squad. You throw in, Xin Zhao, that type of styling has certainly been that path in the meta that they have chosen this split and has been utilized to a good strength by Tarzan.
And, of course, the carry picks are going to come out as well. The Kiana, the Zed, the Silas that we've been seeing kind of especially circled around the LPL here late in the season. Batting at the 8 spot is, again, another guy who we're used to talking about as the best top laner in the world heading into these international events, and that is BLG Bin. No question, still one of the most terrifying split push matchups for any opposing top laner.
Giga Bin is stepping into this world, not necessarily with the Giga Bin title that
mini Giga Bin.
Yeah, has stepped towards international events in the past, but I don't think that's necessarily a reason to sleep on him. His potential and what he can deliver in that individual factor, he still has got what it takes to do that. I think it's going to be about finding that level of confidence, and the right way to apply it is going to be the way that I'm approaching this one with Bin. I want to see some of that veteran savvy, right? You've been at here before. You've been to these stages. You've been here with the expectations to get stuff done. Now I want to see a little bit more of that savvy coming through from him, not just that overwhelming power in the performance.
Let's see, the consistency, being able to play both tanks and carries, which we have obviously seen the evolution of Bin throughout the years, be able to do that and actually practice them, not just want to ignore them in scrim. So that's the sign of maturity that we love to see out of Bin on that top side. 7 on this list is, listen, even if T1 has a disaster showing and doesn't even beat IG, I still feel confident having Mr. Owner this high on this list, because even in the series that T1 has lost, we'll throw the Gen.G one, you're still looking at Owner sitting there going, GG, team diff, because he has had outstanding performance after outstanding performance, save for the Hanwha series. I'll give him that one. That was a dud. But outside of that, most consistent player on T1 this year, bar none.
It's crazy because he is, you're right in saying that even no matter how sideways, whatever direction things end up going out of that T1 IG series to decide the final true team for the World Championship, Owner deserves his spot here right now, and what he has done this year, the year throughout the entirety of it, that he has built for T1, the consistency that he provided and excellency added is got to be recognized at this point. I think this is a player that we have talked so many times about the struggles throughout a regular season, rising, peaking performance when it was necessary for this T1 organization. Different story throughout this year where he has been that beating heart, that consistent line throughout all of these performances for the team, and has been one of the strongest points in acquiring the advantages to set up the rest of his teammates.
And, has, kind of saved some team fights that they have no business winning at times, going back even to the D+ series. Obviously, he had that perfect Jarvan performance, and we've seen some other near-perfect performances out of him. Often the guy who's the first in line to be criticized on this T1 roster. There has not been much to criticize about him so far this year. What he's been putting forth for T1. 6 spot, we have a theme of a lot of top laners in this 6 to 10 area, but this guy is the top of the top lane summit, and that is Keen for Gen.G. I think, no question, has been, I don't even want to say growth, but now that he's actually got trophies on the mantle, you combine that with his carry years on Afrika, we're going to have to start put Keen in that conversation for GOAT top laners. I'm going to say it.
I think last year what we saw from him more or less was just a continuation of his career, right? You were still getting the labeled Keen product. It was Keen, but it wasn't Gen.G Keen. That's what the difference is this year around. You're right, that growth, that journey, that level up that we have now seen from where he already has gone through in the growth from his career. It's taken that next level up. That golden champion sauce topping has come through, and it's elevated his play, what he provides, his strengths to a whole another level. And that's what the difference between Keens of old and the Keen that is here this year as that top lane option, and as we're laying out, one of the top laners of all time.
And you know what? We've seen, again, in years past, him try to do too much because he's been on weaker teams, probably felt like he had to be the carry, the guy. On a stacked Gen.G roster, we have seen this guy slide into the Scion and Ornn role, happily, because he has such a good team. And not only has he happily been playing them, he's been styling on them. The Keen Sante thing is a meme for a reason, and we've seen him dancing on people as Scion and Ornn, which is something you did not see early on in his career.
The only way that you equal that playing field is getting onto that field with him in the Mbessa type of form, where you're also able to have that type of 200 years of Riot game design. And even then, as you laid out, if he's not on Keen Sante, he's still dip dancing and dodging on a Scion, on an Ornn, on something that shouldn't be able to move the way that he is able to make these champions move, survive, provide those advantages into the mid to late game for the Gen.G squad. Yes, this has been a Keen that has not always, has already been a top tier type of player, but has risen to another level with the championship, with the successes of Gen.G.
10-6 is great, but top 5 we roll into legit certified elite status. You are the pillar I'm building an entire organization around. That's how good these guys are. And we start with a former world champion from the LPL, but actually from the LCK, of course. We're talking about Viper on Hanwha Life. Gone are the old days where he was on these scrubby Hanwha Life rosters where he was trying to do everything in his power to carry them to playoff wins. Obviously, this is a much more veteran lineup, Hanwha Life, and there was a dip in performance for Viper, I think, towards the end of the regular season in Split 3, but playoffs roll around, and we saw that clutch factor return for one of the best ADCs in the LCK.
Oh, baby boy, did we ever see that return at the end of the LCK playoffs. You're right to call out just maybe a little bit of a dip in that performance throughout the regular season, but absolutely the peak that you achieve again in these playoffs and reminding what is capable, what is possible for this young player. Well, not so young anymore, maybe at this point with what we have seen from Viper put out. But man, really do appreciate having him at this point, because you're right. These are players that you can build your whole organization around. These are players that can make the play that shifts an entire series around them and their capabilities and what they are willing to do and try for. Viper falls into that list, and having the performances that he did throughout the LCK playoffs leads me to having that confidence that he's got confidence in his own gameplay and knows where to push these limits. I think that one of the other aspects that he brings to that bottom lane that is going to be a factor again at this championship, I don't know, maybe it's watching too many T1 series games against it. It's the Ziggs, that extra angle, that different option in the bottom lane truly is one of those wild cards you can throw down on a team on if they are checked, on if you are prepared, if you have any strategies, whatever, against this shift in momentum.
This guy was, the original awesome dude carry going back to his Griffin days. And aside from maybe Zeri, who's not a pick he's super associated with, but the newer champions, I'm thinking Smolder and now Yunara, he is one of the fastest top tier AD carries to pick them up and excel on these picks. So yeah, definitely a champion ocean for Hanwha Life Viper down in the bot lane. 4 spot, we have the highest ranking jungler, a perennial MVP in the LPL, and a man whose performance did not dip in the slightest. Moving on from Gen.G to top eSports, of course, we are talking about Mr. Kanavi in the jungle.
And this is one where I'm saying it right out of the gates. I need a matchup between him and T1 owner. That's the matchup that I need to see this year, because I need the decider on who is the best Jarvan in the world right now, because I think these two are certainly at the forefront. Owner in the LCK, and here we are with Kanavi talking about him at this point. And man, really think that this is going to be one of those showdowns. And hopefully you've heard it too many times talking about Kanavi and this type of positioning, this type of praise and prestige and where he is for what we have actually seen on the international stage. I've got my highest of hopes that this is going to be the addition that comes around, and we do get to see him fully put forth that effort on the international stage.
And I think there will be a lot of pressure on Kanavi. There's been some, I don't want to say underperformance individually, but he's been on, some world-class Gen.G rosters that, didn't get to finals or didn't get as far as maybe people thought. And because he is highest ranking jungler coming into this event, for us, I think a lot of people will probably value him that high. I feel like that combined with being on top eSports, who if they don't have a good showing, at least in quarters, people are going to be disappointed. There's a lot of pressures on this guy's shoulders.
There is pressure, and I think it's one of those ones where it's going to, pressure either makes diamonds or it crushes you type of situation for Kanavi right now, because yes, it has been those previous years looking back on it and whatever, but this is one of those ones where having a ranking, having a position like this, as we talked about with some of these others, there's conditions. There's no conditions when you're at this point in the rankings. You are able to be that starter, be that thing that starts the movement for your squad without any of these, condition, whatever. It's not there when you are this good. Now you got to prove it if you're Kanavi.
Top 3 on this list, we get very familiar because all 3 of these guys have been in the top 3 in World's rankings in the past. I will say earlier on in the year, I didn't see the path to Ruler finding his way as the highest ranking AD coming into this event early on. Even halfway through Split 1 towards even to MSI, you were kind of talking about, okay, Ruler versus Pays. I feel like Pays, you were maybe getting more out of him last year. Ruler seems maybe past his prime. But then Split 3 rolls around, and especially these playoffs. And again, it's the clutch factor coming through for him, proving why he's a world champion and why he is in that conversation as best ADC of all time.
At the end of MSI, I don't think you're having Ruler in your top 10 players in the world at any point in that type of conversation, in that type of listing. Now, after Split 3, very different conversation. We've got him all the way up into the top 3 players to talk about, and I think very deservedly so, the steps that he has taken to remind us of the form that he can achieve, and that form is of the best player in the world, not just a top 3 type of level. So I think, again, still got a little bit of room to impress, knowing what is capable for him and how good he can play. Can he take it to a whole nother level with everything that he has learned in his time in the LPL and now return to the LCK, and how that return went through in those first, month, first splits type of timeline? You're looking at an improved Ruler, a Ruler who has found his place and form within the Gen.G superstar lineup and is really pushing his level of play to the next tier.
I think there's a direct correlation with how well Ruler is playing and how often he gets caught out in the Ruler spot. Because it's all to do with confidence. When he's in the Ruler spot, he's confident to CS. Maybe it backfires and he gets caught out. But the confidence he is playing with, how far forward he's playing in these team fights, is absolute peak vintage Gen.G or previous Gen.G era Ruler that we're seeing. So we'll take it with a few getting caught out for some extra CS moments. There's huge debate to be had throughout this whole list, of course, who goes where, if they're on it deserving, if you're, accounting for Worlds changing their performance, but there is no arguing in my mind who the top 2 players heading into this event are. I'll even accept you may be arguing where 1 and 2 goes, but 1 and 2, no question for me. We are putting BLG Knight in that number 2 spot, and putting him number 2 anything seems like a disservice, because this guy has been on a man on a mission to finally get a title back on his mantle for BLG. He's tired of finishing runner-up.
I feel a little bit different. I might throw in more so of a conversation of, well, who do you like between Ruler and Knight, 2 and 3? Because to me, number 1 is unquestioned at this point with what we've seen this year, but we'll get to talking about that one. Knight steps in as no slouch in this position as the number 2 player heading into the World Championship. Specifically, if you are going off of what you have seen in the last month and a half, 2 months or so, I don't think there is anybody that you might have a conversation more so at this top tier than Knight, and what type of performance, what type of leadership he has shown for his squad, and really taking control of the year, of his own destiny at this point, and making sure that these performances are at that level. Yeah, we've seen it from him. The Akali, the Assassins, whatever you want, he is going to be there, and he is going to make sure that he is a nightmare to deal with on the enemy side.
Yeah, it's no secret that you've seen a lot more playmakers roll into the meta and assassins, like you mentioned, in the mid lane. And that's why we're talking about a guy like Knight as top two heading into this event was, yeah, full hard carry for BLG in kind of both of their series against top esports. And seeing him in that peak form, buy a Soul Stealer, get a 25 stacks is exactly what you want to see out of this guy. But yes, the man you have alluded to, I think is a surprise to absolutely nobody, is Chovy in that top dog spot. And we've had him here before. The expectations are even higher than they were last year, which is really saying something. And we're always talking lane kingdom with Chovy. His CS numbers in split 3, plus 13 at 15 minutes. And again, that's more than double any other mid laner had in the playoffs. And it's good enough to have the highest CSD at 15 of all major regions of any role. So yes, the lane kingdom is still alive and well.
And I think this is going to be a different iteration around for this Gen.G team, this team that we have talked about to a fair degree on the international stage over the last 2, 3, 4 years at this point for their dominance without a world championship. Things could be different this time around with Chovy stepping in with the MSI title from earlier in the year, and through the challenges that they have withstood in the LCK, going through everything from T1, a little slip up with KT, and then back up against it with Hanwha Life, T1, KT running all the way through them. This is a Gen.G team that I believe has been tested more so than any of these other Gen.G championship iterations, in leading that charge is Chovy in the mid lane, and his performances, his stability, the consistency, the playmaking, everything is at that A+ level. There is nothing that is lacking about a player like this. I am absolutely very proud to have him as the #1 player heading towards this world championship.
And, you know, another international title, an MSI, another LCK title, another MVP he picked up. But nobody is going to properly give this man his flowers until there's a World Championship Summoners Cup in his trophy case. And this feels like the opportunity to do it. I know that's a lot of pressure, but you've heard him talk about it. Feels like he's close to reaching his final form and thriving under these high pressure matches to develop that clutch gene himself. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, absolute stunners. Thanks for hanging out as always, and you know we will catch you on that flippity flip.